The bodies of 4 children were found stuffed into barrels in the woods of New Hampshire. It took investigators almost 50 years to solve, but when they did, it revealed a darkness that most of us can't comprehend. This is the twisted story of the Chameleon Killer and the Bear Brook murders.
Now, I ain't never heard this dude, whatever his name is, the Chameleon Killer, Terry Rez, however the heck you say his name. Anyway, he ain't nobody good, so that's why I don't care, because he ain't important. Clean my face off. Alright, much better. Anyway, we about to hear the story about this guy. If y'all know about it, that's cool, because I don't know about it. And I'm pretty sure some people who is interested in continuing this video don't know about it. But anyway, if you haven't, go ahead and subscribe. It'll help me out. It's free. I mean, you're doing a good deed, right? So like and comment. And if you know anything about this guy, go ahead and enlighten us a little bit about this guy if we don't share it all in this video.
On November 10th, 1985, a hiker was enjoying a walk through the Bear Brook State Park in Allentown, New Hampshire. A few miles into his hike, he came across a large industrial steel drum. He decided to get a closer look, but when he did, he was hit with a smell that he immediately recognized: decomposition. He didn't attempt to open the drum. Instead, he immediately hiked out and called police. When police got to the drum, they carefully opened it up, and what they found would start an investigation that would span 2 decades. Inside, police found 2 bodies. The victims had been clearly dismembered and wrapped in plastic bags, and they were decomposed beyond recognition. Once the bodies were sent for analysis, it was difficult to come to any concrete conclusions about what happened to them because of...
Imagine these bodies, you run across them, and you know what I'm saying? Oh man. For the people who had to go and investigate to see exactly what this was, they got the hardest job ever in the world, because this is very unhumane. And when you gotta go to these lab places just to be identified and hope that they can find something, oh my God.
Them because of the state of decomposition. But what the medical examiner did know was that both victims had been killed sometime between 1977 and 1985. He also noted that the victims were very different ages. First, there was an adult woman who was somewhere between 23 and 33 years old, and there was a young girl who was anywhere from 5 to 11 years old. Police immediately theorized that the victims were mother and daughter, so they started there. Police checked every missing persons case between 1970 and 1986 in the New Hampshire area, and they got a hit. They found the case of 2 missing women in the New Hampshire area, Gracie Reep and her 5-year-old daughter, also named Gracie. Police immediately get dental records pulled for the victims in the 55-gallon drum, but they weren't a match for the missing mother and daughter. Police received hundreds of tips and tried to distribute drawings of the victims all over the country and Canada, but nothing came of it. They checked elementary schools and missing persons cases all over the country, but the case had gone ice cold, until a second barrel would be found in the exact same place. In 2000, a new detective was assigned to the case.
So you mean to tell me they had a new detective 20 years later to go back into this whole story? You know what I'm saying? 20 years later?
He decided to retrace every single step to try to get these victims justice, but he only ended up finding more victims. The detective decided to return to the scene where the drum was found, and to his absolute surprise, he found another one. They found 2 more bodies inside of the second drum, and both of them were young female girls. This is when police found a vital clue. One of the 2 bodies found in 2000 was actually linked to the adult woman found in 1985. This means that police completely missed the second barrel when they found the first one, and it was probably there the whole time. Inside of the second barrel were 2 girls. The first girl was somewhere between 1 to 3 years old, and the second was somewhere between 2 to 4 years old. The little girls were also dismembered and mutilated in the same way as the first, and they were stored in plastic bags in the same manner. Based on the way all the victims were found, police could confidently say that this was the work of one person. And even though police could link the 1985 and the 2000 victims, they still couldn't identify them. Even though they were able to figure out some things, it was still unclear who the killer was, and the case reached yet another dead end. It would take almost 20 more years before the killer could be named and the victims could be identified.
So you mean to tell me they finding barrels and barrels of bodies and they can't find out who did it, but yet they can distinguish the age and this and that, whatever. It's a girl, okay, but they can't identify and find out who did it. Then you go to think about 20 more years that they go back into this
identified. In 2017, genetic genealogy would finally crack this case wide open. A man named Terry Rasmussen that had never been on police's radar during the earlier investigation came exploding into this story. Terry had been in and out of prison for most of his adult life. He had been in jail for theft, drunk driving, and even child endangerment. Terry had pretended to be the father of a little girl who he called Lisa, and he abandoned her in a trailer park and went to jail for that. But after getting out of prison in 1990, Terry pretty much stayed out of police's radar, until 2001 when he did the unthinkable. Terry was working odd jobs in California when he married a young woman named Yun Soon. A year later, Yun Soon went missing and was found dismembered and buried in her basement. Once Terry was arrested for the murder of Yun Soon, the Bear Brooks case was blown wide open because of the little girl he abandoned all those years ago. Lisa had sent a sample of her DNA to an ancestry website and found her mother's name, which was Denise Bowden. Denise only had one daughter named Dawn. Denise and Dawn, who was an infant at the time, had been living with a man named Bob Evans. Just after Thanksgiving in 1983, Denise and Dawn mysteriously went missing. It was Bob Evans who finally led detectives to the truth. Lisa turned out to be Dawn. She was the little girl that Terry had abandoned at the trailer park, and Bob Evans turned out to be Terry Rasmussen. Police discovered that over the years, Terry went by the name Bob and sometimes Lawrence. Denise was never found, but she is presumed dead, especially after Terry murdered his wife Yun Soon. Terry lived in New Hampshire at the time of the murders, and after discovering the connection between Denise and Terry, they discovered that one of the victims was Terry's daughter. They also discovered the names of three of the victims: Marlise Honeychurch, Mary Vaughn, and Sarah McWaters. Marlise was the mom, and Mary and Sarah were her daughters. The fourth victim is Terry's daughter, which has been confirmed by DNA, but she has never been identified. Terry died in 2017 in prison before any of the victims were given their names back. And with Terry's death, we may never know the full story of what happened on that fateful night.
So you mean to tell me this guy died in prison and he pretty much is the main suspect guy? They got all this evidence and shit on him, but yet they saying that he is whatever percentage, him is the one who did it. And all these name changes and switches and crazy shit trying to confuse people. That's just, you know what I'm saying? Just like, man.
The story is tragic. You may have seen this place on Instagram. It's called The Stairway to Heaven, and it's been tagged in thousands of posts by influencers and thrill seekers alike. As you can see, it is not for the faint of heart or those with the fear of height. The 130-foot long steel ladder goes between two mountains at a peak of almost 7,000 feet, and the ladder shakes and sways as you climb. It's promoted as a top attraction for climbing enthusiasts and called the ultimate adrenaline kick. You're usually harnessed in, but as you can see, they are apparently pretty lax with that rule. Just last week, a 42-year-old British man was climbing it alone when he fell off the ladder, plunging 300 feet into the valley below. 2 police helicopters found him, but it was too late. Rescuers were unable to save him and recovered his body from the mountains. The attraction is in Austria, where several towns have begged social media influencers to stop overrunning their cities for content. One area, believed to be the inspiration for the town in Disney's Frozen, even closed off access to its famous lakefront view to discourage people from coming. They haven't identified the man yet, and it should go without saying, but please don't go to dangerous lengths for a good picture without the proper training.
Now I understand the excitement, the thrill, because I love thrills and excitement myself. But y'all can't be putting yourself in these type of situations where you ain't got nothing to save you if you was to mess up. Me, that's why I would never go, you know what I'm saying, bungee diving, because I don't like that whole string resistance shit. But at the same time, I would go skydiving just because of mentally how I feel is safer. But that's just me because I like the thrill. But this right here is not a thrill. Dude was doing this without his safety gear. Man, rest in peace.